Hey everyone, Tay Harvey here from anaxdent North America, bringing you the latest episode of our web series, It's So Easy Even Tay Can Do It, where I try out dental materials and techniques. Why is this beneficial for you to watch? Well, I'm not a dentist, I'm not a hygienist, I'm not an assistant, I'm not a dental technician. So guess what? If I can do it, you know you can do it too. I'm not editing out any of my mistakes along the way, so you're going to learn from my mistakes instead of your own. Ready to see what happens? Okay, let's do this. In today's episode, the first of our series, we're going to focus on the Celara Denture Facilitation system. This system is designed to speed up the process of replacing a patient's existing denture, whether they want a couple small changes, something really close to what they have, or they want or need major changes. The kit is used in a dental practice and then is sent off to the dental lab where they process a new try-in for the patient. Now this is done saving 2 appointments. That's a lot of chair time. That adds up, people. Now that I have you interested, let's give it a try. So today I'm going to be playing the part of the dental assistant because that's who's typically going to be using the Celara kit. The Celara kit, let's talk about what comes inside. This great little disposable flask where you're going to box and pour your impression and create a stone model, master cast. There's a pre-measured pouch of a special quickset stone, and there's a pre-measured pouch of alginate. Everything's been measured for you so that it completely fills up perfectly the Celara flask, so none of the guesswork is there. There's also a little measuring scoop for water for your stone and a little thermoplastic tab. Coolest thing about Celara is that it comes with a manual that was written by the prosthodontist who developed it. And this thing goes over every step, the do's and don'ts. I read it before attempting this, and I actually feel really confident that I'm going to do a good job and that if I screw up, I'll at least know what I did wrong. It also comes with a step-by-step heavy-duty laminated poster, so you can put this up in the area of the practice that you're going to be using the product, and it'll help you always remember what to do step by step and gives the most important tips along the way. Step 1, after the patient's denture has been used as a custom impression tray, we're going to box and pour the impression. So the first step is to measure the water for the alginate powder. But before we do that, carefully open the alginate. I shook the powder down to the bottom so I'm not going to lose any powder as I open it because, as it states in the manual, you don't want to lose any powder. This is the perfect amount for the amount of water that you're going to measure. Okay, so I'm making sure all of the alginate powder is in there. If I don't get all of it out, it's going to make too thin of a mix, and the sides of the alginate could kind of roll away from the sides of the flask, so you don't want that to happen. Also important is that you don't add powder to water. You always want to add your water to the powder, so that's why I'm doing it in this order. What I love about this, everything's so measured for you. This is your measuring cup for water, the bottom of the flask that you're about to pour the alginate in. All you have to do is fill it to the lid, fill it completely with water, and that's the right amount of water. I'm going to incorporate the water into the alginate powder. What's cool about this alginate is it's stable for 96 hours. So even if you're not working with a local lab on your cases, you can 2-day this to a lab anywhere, and it's still going to be dimensionally stable. Now, it's very important at this step to scrape the sides of that bowl and get all the alginate inside. Now, the manual does reference that you shouldn't fill it all the way to the top because the denture obviously is going to displace the alginate. But in this case, it's such a small denture that I know I'm okay. The manual also states that you want to leave about 1 to 2 millimeters max of the borders exposed out of the alginate. Any more than that, and it might lock onto the cast. That was easy. Done. Boxed, poured, impression. Bam. I did a pretty good job. I'm looking at the borders. There are a couple spots where I might be a little further than 2 millimeters above the level of the alginate, but maybe 3, so we'll see if that's a big deal here in a minute when we pour the stone cast. We just don't want the denture to lock on. But what I do need to do, and this you're going to do almost all the time, this is not a mistake, people, this happens, okay? I'm going to cut away the alginate that has flowed over the posterior of the denture, because you spend all that time taking an impression, you're sending your lab all the information that they really need. I don't like knives, but here we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut that away. Okay, and it's okay to cut a little bit more than you need because it's actually gonna strengthen the model there. So now we are ready for step 2. Pouring the stone to make your master cast. So as I said, I just repeated the work I was doing on the other side of the denture to expose both of the posterior areas so I can capture all that great impressed anatomy. Now I'm going to mix up the stone. Your measuring cup for the water to go with the stone is this little cup right here. It's the perfect amount of water, so you want to be really careful. Definitely use that cup. And again, it's equally important with the stone to use all of the material that's in the pouch. So we're going to fully empty the pouch of stone into the mixing bowl. Measure my water. Now before you add the water to your stone, make sure you have one or two thick rubber bands on hand, because we're going to use that to make sure that that flask is completely shut whenever we pour the stone in. I'm going to get my flask ready first before I add the water. The top just fits right on to the little notches. There you go. I'm going to secure that with a rubber band. The tricky part's going to be getting it around the rubber bands, but we'll see how I do. So I add a full measuring cup of water. You do not need to vibrate the bubbles out of this stone. I'll show you what the instructions say to do. Okay. Now, the instructions say this will not fill the flask completely, but that's okay. It just says use all of it. And it says once I have scraped it all into the flask, I just tap it on the table and I can see my bubbles start to come up. Okay, this is a quick set stone. 5 minutes and it's done. All right, so 5 minutes is up. I'm ready to open up the flask. There we go. Check it out. So we've got a wonderful impression of the denture. And you need to make sure you don't damage it. Ah, beautiful. But you see how beautifully it captured everything? You send this to the lab and they've got all the information they need. They go straight to the articulator with this model. So now we're on to step 3. And this is where most of the time, dental assistants, your job is done. We're going to put this in a zipper bag with a wet paper towel, send it off to the lab. Okay, so last step, creating the wax duplicate. Of course, we need to isolate the model so our wax duplicate doesn't stick to the stone. So I'm generously applying the Celara separating agent to our stone model, covering the entire surface of the model. Before we can get the melting pot out, which is very fun, I have to prepare this for injection. The way I'm going to do that is by making sprue holes, injection holes, in place for the wax to exit. In an upper denture, you can inject in one place and have one exit sprue. But in a mandibular denture, because there's no palate, we have to have 2 exit channels. And then I'm going to go through the back in the retromolar area and make a hole all the way through to the outside of the flask. You want to stay as close to the middle as you can of the flask, closer to the borders, and it just gets tough to access. Okay, you want to know why I'm not a dental technician or an assistant or a dentist? These things really scare me. Technicians, am I driving you crazy the way I'm holding this thing? It's probably all wrong. Oh, that's my best one yet. The wax injector, it's simple. There's some special wax that comes with the Celara system that's actually formulated so that a hard base plate doesn't need to be used. It's a really hard wax. So the lab is going to take this. They can process a base plate if they really want to, but it's not necessary. So they can take this as it comes from you, pull out the paper towel, put it back together, make sure it's secure with the rubber bands. We're going to hold this and pump slowly the wax inside and then put it in some cold water to let the wax firm up. It takes about 5 minutes in icy water. So I've got some ice in my water. Big important information. If the wax is too hot, it's going to shrink and it's not going to give an accurate dimensional model for them to work with. The right level is going to be the setting just above medium. But if you find that you like to work with it slightly cooler, slightly hotter, hey, that's fine. We just recommend kind of marking on the dial where you want to be so that you have it for reference later. Okay, so before I did this, I made sure that the channels I'm injecting into and exiting from are clear because they gum up with alginate when you're working with the handpiece. Are we ready? I think I'm ready. I'm accident prone, so I paid special attention to the fact that you're not supposed to pump this really hard. You actually just pull it up and let it fall. Now don't put your fingers by the exit holes, okay? I didn't have to tell you that, right? So for some reason right now, I'm seeing I have wax coming out of one exit hole, but not the other. So there's something blocking the other side. Now, you'll notice I'm not immediately taking it off of the wax injector. The manual was really clear that it's so important to leave it on the spout after you've finished filling the container with wax. Leave it on the spout for 20 to 30 seconds. Because if you take it off, then the wax is going to fall and you're going to have posterior areas with voids. So I'm trying to be patient. I've waited long enough. Dang it. I'm going to submerge it in the cold water. Wax side down. In about 5 minutes, we'll see what happens. All right, let's see how I did. Oh, look at that. I probably just have my my exit site a little too close to where the stone is coming. I see that now that I'm thinking about it. But you know what? It still worked, even though it didn't come out. Check it out, y'all. Look at that. Tear my little sprue off. Lab technicians, how much nicer is it to start from this than a big old solid chunk of wax with some marks in it? What a great way to communicate with your dentist on a denture case. And this is not just for dentures that only minor changes are necessary. You can go anywhere from this that you need to. You can convert it for implant cases, cut off the flange, make your adjustments. But whatever you do, you always start with all the information that you need. Way more information than the traditional way. All right, guys, we did it. We duplicated a denture perfectly in wax. We knocked out 2 appointments. And if I can do it, you can definitely do it. So, how do you get started? Call your lab. Call your lab and ask them if they work with the Celara system. If they don't, they can call us and we can get them started. And if we can help, it's 877-897-6598. For more information and to see a PDF of the training materials for Celara, go to anaxdentusa.com/Celara. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.